Hey, all you Arizona lovers. This is the Finding Arizona podcast, episode number 387. I'm your host, Jose. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's episode is with Birdcall, or as my son likes to call it, Chicken Party. Yes, it is a fantastic new age, how do I put this, fast food experience. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. It's with one of their, creators, inventors, experiential employees. It is with Peter. Peter, thank you so much for allowing us to pick your brain and understand where you're coming from. And this is a Colorado-based restaurant, so we hope that you guys enjoy the new experience that Birdcall brings to the Grand Canyon state. And so we hope that you guys will continue to follow us and join us into the actual next portion of the intro, which is the businessy side. You can hear every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. We make it easy for you guys to follow us on social media. That's everything under Finding Arizona Podcast. Next up, if you want to send us a direct line, you can do so at findingarizonapodcast@gmail.com. I try my best to make sure that we go through all the emails and connect with every single one of you who suggests something for us or just give us a nice, beautiful comment in return. So that being said, we are going to just tell you a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. We are working diligently because the holiday season is upon us. We are going to be going out of town and going to be enjoying the in-laws in San Diego. My son is super excited. He keeps commenting that he's excited to see his Gigi and Papa. He's like a really great swimmer, and he's also a really great beach kid, so we're excited to take him there and enjoy the fun and the sun for Christmas. So that being said, we're going to try and make sure that you guys are getting your feed filled with our podcast. We're going to make sure that we have things in order so that you guys get the content that you need when the holiday season comes up for that Saturday and Sunday. So we hope that you guys will continue to follow us, tell us what you want in next, and we will continue to do so. New year 2024, we're excited for that as well. We have some new guests, some new experiences going on, and we're going to try our best to fill in with some of our new stuff that we've got going on with our end too. We hope that you guys who want to build a community of great podcasters will join us in joining in on our services that we provide for you guys who want to start your own podcast. We have an opportunity for you to build your own podcast with us. So we are excited. We are very, on our toes, and we're just super amped for what's coming up down the road. And that being said, let's just jump right into this episode number 387 with Peter of Birdcall. We will see you guys next time. As always, kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends. We'll catch you later. Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose, and as always, we bring in very special guests every week, and today is no different. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to introduce you to Peter here, but Peter's going to let us know about Gustamo Group, but he's just say he's also part of the Birdcall team as well, so let's get into it. Peter, tell us a little bit more about each company, business, and a little bit more about yourself. Give us your origin story.
Oh, for sure, man. Well, thanks, Jose, for having me. Super thankful to be on your show. So my origin story is pretty unique. My dad was a pastor, so I grew up moving up and down the East Coast, and always, my dad wasn't too much into sports, so really just had this deep love of the outdoors and grew up backpacking and had that deep appreciation. So I ended up at college of Charleston in South Carolina, and then moved out to Colorado to go to grad school at DU. At the time, I thought I wanted to be in the outdoor industry and finish my MBA.
Most would for Colorado, right?
For sure. I mean, if you can build a career out of skiing 100 days of a year, I mean, I think that's still my objective. I'm just going about it in a different way.
Yeah.
but moved out west, got an MBA at the University of Denver, and at the time I was finishing that degree, I really got my first restaurant job, and my first restaurant job was at it was called the Cherry Creek Grill. Cherry Creek Grill, it's still here today, but it's a Hillstone property.
Okay.
What was so great about Hillstone, George Beale is just, I mean, without a doubt, one of the greatest operators in the world, and just really learned about the sequence of service, how to execute at the highest level. And then one day I was biking home, going back to my apartment wherever I lived, and
Hmm.
I passed by this little gourmet burger restaurant called Park Burger. It was a 40-seat burger joint, and I remember going in, and could have been the best restaurant in the world, and it wouldn't have made any difference. It was where I needed to be. It was truly, I'd experienced, what professional service looks like, but I had never really experienced hospitality, and
Nice.
that's where I just fell in love with hospitality, and ended up applying there the next day. So that's how I got my start in hospitality. At the time, the restaurant group was just this burger joint, this 40-seat burger joint
Yeah.
called Park Burger. It was owned by Jean-Philippe Failliot, went to the French Culinary Institute from Belgium, but he, kind of grew up in Colorado.
Okay.
And he wanted to open up this neighborhood little burger joint. And I kind of fell in love with it, started as a server, ended
Yeah.
up working my way up. And together, it just blossomed. And he was always the chef. I mean, I kid you not, I do not know I can cook pretty good avocado toast,
There you
but
go. Yeah.
there's the cool thing about the restaurant business is just how diverse the skill set is necessary to operate great restaurants. And
Absolutely.
where he fell in love with the food, I fell in love with the guest experience, and how do we really provide joy and make people's days better than when they arrived, and leave in a better place. And how do we use interior design and sound and touch and smell,
Yeah.
and how do we layer on these other senses, both visual and other ways. And so I kind of gravitated more to the development, the new concepting, the branding, and
Mhm.
and he really kept pushing the food to new limits. From there, we ended up opening up several concepts
Yeah.
in Colorado, like Perdita Kitchen, which is a Baja coastal restaurant, Lady Nomada, Park Burger, Homegrown, and then of course Birdcall is the first restaurant we've ever left Colorado. And all that while, I mean, super thankful to be on this podcast in Arizona. I mean, while we were growing in Colorado, I mean, we just constantly watching our role models and Sam Fox and everything that he was doing across this amazing industry. And he was always been that one we've always just looked up to. And Lauren
Yeah.
Bailey and all these amazing Arizona operators that have completely elevated this industry. And so it's just such an honor to be able to bring one of our concepts to Arizona. And then
Yeah.
Birdcall, real quick, is the whole idea of Birdcall was how do we increase the quality of foods while decreasing the price? That was always, every restaurant is faced with that same challenge of
Yeah.
you increase cost or do you decrease quality? Because we have to survive, especially if you want to scale, right? And our mission is to create community run restaurants. But in order to do that, I mean, they still have to make sense. And
Absolutely.
so it's always how do we use technology and how do we create alternative ways of the dining experience in order to, serve the highest quality ingredients at a lower price. And that became kind of an obsession at Birdcall. And
Yeah.
it became, how do you bring these things that we're doing in full service experiential dining into, fast food like QSR restaurant,
Yeah.
and kind of change that experience. So Birdcall is the first one we left. And Birdcall, we had some amazing partners,
Mhm.
and they're the ones focused on that growth. And we brought in this amazing CEO to really guide us. I mean, I'd like to say I'm a great CEO, but I'm really a great concept creator, or I hope at least I want to be a great concept creator. And we've got an unbelievable leadership team, and just super thankful to be opening
Yeah.
restaurants in Arizona now. But yeah,
It's
that's kind of
great.
our story.
Yeah, no, in all honesty, I want to pull out a couple of things from that whole dialogue there, because there's ideas of we could talk about the technology side, we could talk about just kind of your early start. I really like to start off with the early start, and it helps progress us forward. So, that ride down to going back to the apartment and just coming across Park Burger. I mean, what about it stood out to you to want to just say yes to the experience, say yes to what you thought was a special thing there?
Yeah, and I think it's I think you got to believe in the magic, right? And
Yeah.
I just truly believe in the magic. And I think what made that experience so magical was like, yeah, you can spend $1 million on a meal probably somewhere, right? And
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
assume that's a good experience. But how do you deliver that? At a lower price point? And I think that was the first time where I saw this magic doesn't exist. Price is irrelevant. In
Yeah.
the definition of luxury, you don't see the definition of a price value associated with it. And so it really was in this kind of this moment of enlightenment where I was like, holy smokes, like there's magic to this. And
Yeah.
I remember everyone was in that restaurant from little kids to senior citizens. I mean, and everybody was enjoying this same environment. And it was the energy that was it was so small. So
Yeah.
the actually burger chef was it basically in the middle of the restaurant. So you just
Wow.
you could see the sizzling burger and you could feel the energy.
Yeah.
And um, it was just this absolutely powerful moment, and I still remember it so vividly. And then
Awesome.
it was really became this obsession of like, okay, I want to recreate that. And I mean, I've always been someone who loves hosting a party. Like I love to host a party, and I was like, man, there's a career where you can actually do this at scale. That's
Hmm.
I guess you know, I went to grad school and I was like, I guess I should be in finance. I mean, I mean, in the end of the day, I had no idea what I was talking about or doing. And I didn't realize, I should have realized when I was younger that I was more on the creative side, but
Hey,
it's
I get
good
it.
at least
That's
figured it out at time.
yeah. If anything, it just gave you the right amount of time to figure it out, right? You just kind of made that nice little settlement. Like you got into your groove. It's like working out now, and it's just like it finally fits you. And this is like one of the things that we kind of talk about too with our podcast is just kind of like how do people end up being in the positions that they are in today, and just reflecting on that moment, and just like we've had people who have had family history of being such and such, and they end up taking over the reins for the parentals. Or if it's just like in your and I case, like we found something that we actually love doing, and that we are just enjoying the having the ability to do the conceptual fun things that come along with it, and the work that goes along too. And it just kind of snowball effect, and it just really ends up taking a lot of our you know development time and learning the how to do things and just getting better and better at it. So I wish I give you kudos for that, Peter. I'd love to just now kind of like pivot a little bit, just kind of moving forward in time, just a little bit further, and you know, working with the executive chef and just kind of coming up with these concepts. Is it you going to him? Is it him coming to you about like new like he wanting to try something out different in a different way, and then you filling in the idea? How does that typically work for you guys?
Actually, I want to go back for a second on that.
Sure.
I never really thought about, I want to figure out, why I was thinking about why I love hospitality. And I think a part of it also goes back to my parents who had this deep love. My dad is a pastor and my mom who spent her career in Head Start. And, there's this book that just came out called Unreasonable Hospitality, if you ever have a
Okay.
chance to read it.
I'm
And
gonna take a look.
the best thing about the book is they say people come to restaurants on their best days and on their worst days, but irrelevant of why
Mm,
they come there, you really have this ability to make their day better. And I think
mm-hmm.
that is if you truly believe in that, and you bring that energy into your day every single day. I mean, it's pretty special
Yeah.
to see those moments, and you can actually see people turn, and it's pretty special. Going into the question you just asked, so gosh, I never really thought about the impact of my parents on me in hospitality. But
That's awesome, right? Like it's just kind of cool to like, just kind of pull at the strings a little bit and tug at them and just kind of follow the thread of like, where does this love and passion come from? Because I know for my own like how this whole thing, it's from my grandfather. He always I grew up on an Indian reservation, and so he was an elder. He held a lot of the stories. He held a lot of the kind of like spoken language, and he told me a lot of the times that these stories are important. They mean something, and everyone has one, or everyone should be able to tell one. And so I took that to heart when growing up and just going to college. And then, this started out as being me asking while I was screen printing t-shirts of business owners, just literally just, what do you do? Like, what is this business that you have? So that's, I look at back on it now and I'm just like, I'm really grateful that I was listening to my grandfather when he was trying to instill this into me and make me think more about this kind of stuff.
That's awesome. That's really special. Gosh, speaking about families, one last tidbit, and then we'll get into the next one.
Yeah.
I actually sit at the room that we're in right now, or yeah, I mean, I doubt people can see it, but I sit at my grandfather's desk, and
Nice.
he was really the only business professional in our family. Everybody else was in law, professor, or worked in the church, and but I still keep some of the drawers in my desk.
Wow.
With, his old Exxon badge, his old notebooks. And so like every now and then I'll open up a drawer and just, kind of look at a picture of him. And it's like sitting at his desk, I tried to design the room to be a tribute to him, as he would have sat here. But it's fun to have these people that inspired you your whole life. And not only do you want to carry on their story, but you want to make them proud. And so holding on to that is just so essential. All right, let's talk about restaurants. So, so the way Philippe and I, from the beginning, concept restaurants is really we generate an idea and then we just kind of go into our own lanes for a while. So perfect example, Homegrown Tap and Dough. It's our pizzeria in Colorado, and the intention was like, okay, we found this great location. It's too close to a Park Burger to build another Park Burger. Let's start concepting. And then from there, my partner will pick a cuisine, and then he'll start working on the menu with, a great chef team that we have at the office. And then I'll just start trying to find a story. And so we do a lot of story writing, at least on the concept side. What is this restaurant? What does it tie to? Homegrown is really telling the story of Colorado. So it's really this kind of Colorado pizzeria. And each restaurant tells a different story, from kind of the old 10th Mountain Division and a beautiful history to, what did Vail feel like in the 70s? And, and really we get as far as like creating characters and, how would they experience this restaurant? And that influences everything from the art, the art down to the menu. And, another restaurant we have is Perdita.
Yeah.
This one means a lot to our team. And Jean-Philippe and I just hopped in a cab in San Diego and we're like, we're going to go drive all the way to Cabo, drive the whole Baja Peninsula and eat every taco, drink wines in Guadalupe. We actually I read on, I kind of like just get into something and then I'll figure it out along the way. And I was like, I think you can take an Uber to Tijuana where we can pick up the car. And I very quickly realized I was wrong. And we got let out, walked the border and just had this magical experience and ate some of the best food and touched amazing textures. And we brought these projects home and created this restaurant that's designed to take you away. And the more you get into the story writing, the concepting, the better chance that you actually have to accomplish the mission of the project, which is like, we are living in an incredibly stressful time. I mean, the last 4 years are have been horrible. And and it's worse and worse every day. I mean, it's more and more important, people in hospitality that really create these projects to kind of relieve people of the daily stress.
For sure.
And they really can be that magical, and people go to them to seek shelter. And so the more that you can bring the concepting in and give them this temporary vacation, a vacation only needs to last 30 minutes. It's pretty cool. So, and same thing with Birdcall. I mean, Birdcall was really this idea of bringing in the modern farmhouse and how come every fast food restaurant, there's a picture of a burger on the wall? It's like, nobody wants to see a burger while you're eating a burger. And it just was really like, how do we bring this amazing residential feel and warmth and comfort in art and, into a setting where it's, is kind of historically has been non-traditional. So that's the most fun, right? We all have, and that's what, from my standpoint, that's what I love. I mean, I love the team building and growing teams, seeing the growth and development of careers. But, my personal favorite thing is just to like see an idea, find a location, and then create something
from the
completely
ground
from
up.
nothing. That's
Yeah.
just and then see people walk in it. I mean, and to us, they're a piece of art. It's our canvas, so it's
Yeah.
pretty special.
I love that. And there's definitely like a lot of from your perspective, there's a lot of time and just experiential items that you, again, being the coordinator of all of this, it's just you want to make sure that as the customer comes in, that they get the feeling of what you're trying to storytell here, what you're trying to curate for them. And so I want to just stop off and say my wife's from San Diego, from Imperial Beach. And so that when she took me to go visit her parents for the first time, it was one of the best like concepts of a beach town, USA, that I have ever come across from my perspective of like it's one of the last. I feel like it's like truly just this like strip of like beach town life that you can kind of see and really understand what a beach town is. So I very much like admire you guys going and trying to make the trek across Tijuana first off too, because I've done it myself. And we went, it was kind of cool. We went and stopped off at a taqueria, and it was awesome. Like the best tacos I've ever had. Like it was beautiful. And I came back to the other side again, and we talked about it the entire day about like how cool of an experience it was. And just I can definitely feel your guys's time and energy, like the way that you guys went and did the trek and it went all the way up and down. I definitely could feel like that understanding of like, well, what are we trying to build here? What are we trying to make for our experience at home? And so kudos to you guys, like again, for doing what you did just to get the experience in your own brain and give it to others as well. I'd love to also kind of go down this route that you brought up with the pandemic and just kind of ask you what were some of the things like for your side of not only Birdcall, but for the group in general when you guys, rent is hard, coming up with through what we've experienced in the conversations that we've had, just the supply chain and how that worked out for everyone. And give us a little bit of how the pandemic affected you guys.
Yeah, and there's no denying that, when we first started building restaurants back in the days, I mean, golly, I look back and I was like, it was kind of easy, and then, I mean,
Easy comparative to what you've been through, like in that
yeah.
short period of time of like,
And
man, I was like hectic. It was crazy then.
you try to build restaurants in a pandemic, and then you see the inflation come, and that it just kept hitting for so many years. And
Yeah.
but I think it's like the one thing that's so important with building restaurants is just remaining humble. Like of more than any other business, you have to, you've got to be able to break down and realize that you're not there yet. And every restaurant needs to be better than the previous restaurants, and you need to roll those lessons through. And you are just a student of the trade. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be a student of hospitality my entire career. And you have to want to seek education. You have to get uncomfortable in the skill sets that you don't know. And COVID was an interesting time. I mean, at Birdcall, we've created our own proprietary POS. We've created a whole vertical tech stack. We actually have an engineering team that's working on it, which is pretty cool because
Wow.
we have this really tight feedback loop where we're getting feedback from our guests and our team members daily, and we're adjusting the roadmap. And so when COVID hit during Birdcall, it was like, okay, what is important here? Safety is number one. How the guest picks the food up. How can we build new technology in order to make that experience better? So within 2 weeks, I think at Birdcall, we released, I think it was 3 weeks, we released curbside pickup, which is a fully digital pickup where you didn't even have to get out of your car. We just kind of threw it in your window. And at the time, this was pretty innovative. In the full service restaurants, it was a little bit more challenging, and huge kind of changes to our service models. And but it was a very, very scary time. But I think it was the same thing it is today. It's just you got to wake up, you got to get your healthy habits underway, and you got to say, okay, how are we going to make it through today, and how can we start to plan for a little bit further out? And pretty quickly into COVID, we were like, okay, we can survive. It's just going to have to be a grind, and we're going to have to be creative, and we're going to have to constantly adjust what the guest is looking for. I mean, there's no denying that during COVID, restaurants were pivoting in so many different directions.
Yeah.
It was like this interesting time that there may never be again, and at least in my career, where you can try pretty much anything and the guest will forgive you because they're like, I know you have no idea what you're doing right now. And
Yeah.
I mean, even at Birdcall, we were just trying new things every day. Be like, oh, but I'll tell you this: the most beautiful thing happened during COVID and kind of built our heart. So we have this just amazing partnership at Birdcall with the Tuckman Family Foundation,
Okay.
and at Gustamo Group, we closed a lot of our restaurants. At Birdcall, we kept them open because we figured out how to provide a really safe dining experience. But we can, much love and thanks to the Tuckman Family Foundation, we actually converted a lot of our full service restaurants into commissary kitchens and delivered over 250,000 meals to healthcare workers across the state of Colorado. And what was interesting is it started as like, okay, let's support hospital workers. And then it really, we realized there was a huge food security problem in some of the rural regions in Colorado. And we figured out how to use hospitals as distribution centers. And it just became like, I mean, when I think back on COVID, I think about like, just waking up and working on this just amazing project and driving 15,000 meals down in a beat up refrigerated truck to Pueblo in Canyon City. And so there's actually a lot of beautiful memories in there. And, that was all thanks to a cool partnership. And that ended up failing because the demand got so big and we had so many amazing donations coming into Fuel Hope Kitchen. And we just have no idea how to make 20,000 meals in a day. And so eventually it was just like, people were like, I know it's free, but your food is starting to get bad. I was like, we gotta get back to running restaurants.
Yeah. No, I understand.
It was a
completely.
cool program.
I mean, in all honesty, too, I think you're absolutely right. That's the one thing that we constantly hear over at our podcast is just during the pandemic, there was a lot of bad, but there's also these silver linings, and looking and focusing on those silver linings on how these different entrepreneurial groups and business owners and everyone in between, nonprofits especially, how they stay afloat and how they find what matters in their community, like what they do best. And what is like what I like to say their bread and butter is and focusing on that and honing in on that and finding the purpose that they have, what they ask themselves, and how they can better the community at large. So it's just wonderful to hear those stories pop up again. Just we like to ask those questions about the pandemic because it wasn't so long ago, but it also just like there was, like you said, so many opportunities to try something and just try it if it works, it works. But yeah, let's also I want to move forward just because we're running out of time here and we're running low. You brought up the technology part of Birdcall and just kind of these, what you've been, progressing on technology wise. I'd love to, get into the minutia of that. Was that concept something that you brought up in your attention to detail and just like coming up with the concept, or was there another group that came in and was like, look, this is what we have, we can provide it with Birdcall and incorporate it into the business as a large? Also on top of that, like a secondary question is like, how much fun has it been to see these numbers, to see the data come through?
Yeah. And I mean, the technology, so it's so silly when you look back in time when Jean-Philippe and I opened the first Birdcall, because we put half of the budget to building custom software and half of the budget to building out a restaurant. And we didn't have a very big budget to start off in the beginning. I mean, if you heard anyone say this, they would be like, you're the biggest, you're ridiculous. You're an idiot.
Yeah. What are you doing? There's already like,
but I think the problem was it kind of came out when Silicon Valley was coming out, and I was like, oh my God, I love Silicon Valley. I should probably start a tech company. It was a little bit more thoughtful than that. But I remember traveling, and I used to be big into triathlons, and we were doing a triathlon in San Francisco.
Okay.
And went to this restaurant called Pizza. And it was the first completely automated front of the house restaurant I'd ever seen in my career.
Wow.
And I came back and I was just so inspired, because at the time we started building Birdcall, and I was like, hey, I want to figure out how do we bring these experiences, the artwork, the murals, all this stuff
Yeah.
that makes these restaurants so magical into a fast food setting or into a QSR setting, an elevated setting, and serve the food for less,
Yeah.
and remove tip and keep the prices down so that it can be a place where people can come, 2 to 3 times a week, and do
Yeah.
the same thing with the menu. Right? That's why I love Birdcall, is because we're just as much about the salad as the sandwich, and we really are creating a menu that can really meet what any type of whatever you're looking for.
Hmm.
But back then, so right, I came back from San Francisco. I'm talking to my partner, and I think he thinks I'm nuts. And I end up calling one of my best friends at the time, this really kind lady who had a company called Therapy Partners, which was basically like Mind Body Online,
Yeah.
and she had engineers. And I was like, "Do you mind if I, use one of those engineers or a couple of those engineers for a while?" And we've actually built a prototype. And so the original
Nice.
idea was just, how do you automate the front? And that
Hmm.
was not to kind of reduce staff, but was completely change the job description. And instead of it being a job of like,
Hmm.
welcome to Bird Call, would you like fries with that? And you want to double that meat? I have no idea what we would have said. But
Hmm.
now it's like you're placing your order on a kiosk, and team members can walk around and be like, Jose, good to see you again. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah.
How's your family? Let me get you that refill. Let me get that door. And really
Yeah.
provide those magical moments that actually generate that hospitality experience where we're really, we're searching, we're trying to share with the world.
Yeah.
And so we basically started on this very simple flow. You order at a kiosk, your name, it's Jose, shows up on the board. When your order's ready, it'll come into a bay. There's a beautiful sticker on it, so you know it's your order. Here's Jose's order. Got it. Boom, you're gone. Called it the single point of contact.
Nice.
And the whole thing was just this obsession with the user experience, because at this time, the reason we built our own technology is this technology didn't exist.
Hmm.
And there was kiosk software that did exist, but it was so hard to function. It's
Got it.
like, I was traveling around the country looking for use cases where kiosks were working.
Hmm.
And the only way that we've always believed that kiosks will work is if it's 100%, right? If you give an option out, you'll never learn how to make that experience better in order to get full adoption where everyone can figure out how to easily get through that ordering journey.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we kind of built it, and just with our obsession with interior design, quickly became this obsession with user experience, digital design. I still remember sitting in our old office, which was kind of, and sitting on the second floor. It was only on the second floor, this small little 600 square foot office, and we looked at back buttons for like 3 hours, and I
Hours.
was like,
Yeah.
it's got to be that back button. And we actually did an old back button that was reminiscent of like the back button on a cassette player. And
Yeah.
it's just everything and so that was cool. And the technology has completely evolved. And we're solving for a single use case, right? We're solving, how do we make Bird Call better, and how do we really create a better place to work, create a better guest experience,
Mm.
and anything that really kind of falls into those two buckets. And we have the opportunity that we can build. And so what originally started of how do we create this amazing guest experience now is transformed into, now it's like, how do we create this incredible employee experience?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if there's a lot of people out there, operator driven, that are building technology in that way, where it's like, I'm talking directly to the team. It's like, and so I think we have some pretty clear objectives, and it'll be really, really exciting to see where it goes, because I just think there's so much that can be done for the industry to just really create a more beautiful place to work, right? And how
Yeah.
do you make this industry fun, and how do you share the power of hospitality, not with your guests, but with your team? And I think that's something that I have to constantly remember. The magic of a restaurant. Anyone
Hmm.
can build a beautiful restaurant. You can go to the most beautiful restaurants that are empty across this country that probably cost
Absolutely.
$10 million to build. But creating a team that shares the passion and love with a community, and I mean that takes real work, and that's really where the magic exists.
Yeah.
And I think when I was young in my career, I'm like, man, make it pretty, it'll be busy, and I couldn't have been more wrong. And so now I'm really excited about this next journey in my career, and I'm really excited about watching Mark, the CEO, really transform the organization for the better. But it's like, how do we build technology to create a better place to work? And I think that's pretty rad. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
I also always say it's like the fact that we're still building technology 8 years later, that's the win.
Yeah. That's
So
incredible.
it's pretty fun, man, and it's fun to explore these complex use cases. And so much restaurant technology is being built, you know, from someone that comes from a history in technology, and they've identified a gap in the market, but they don't understand the real operation needs, right? And
Yeah.
that's why for decades we've had POSs with all these features we don't use. So
Yeah.
build what you need, build what's going to make change. So it's pretty cool. And I mean, you don't see that when you go into Birdcall, but that's really, it's a pretty
It's
magnificent
built in.
thing because
Yeah.
we're trying to make it disappear from the guest experience. That was one place I made a big mistake. We first opened, it was like, nobody wants to eat at the Apple store, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like here, I like to call it like, I do landscape architecture as my kind of like 9 to 5 job, and so for me, I like to explain it like this: if I do my job right, you will never think twice about where you like the park that you're playing in. You'll never think twice about the sidewalk being designed wrong or anything like that. You just enjoy the park. Whereas like that's the technology, like that's the skill level of like, it being integrated into the thing that you're using so that you can just enjoy those experiences. You're not like complaining about like, oh, this is there's not enough trees. It's too hot, like that sort of thing. It's like I don't have shade to sit on. It's like, no, it's already there built in because we've come up with a concept that works really well. We've thought about it on all different levels, who's going to use it, who's going to experience it, all of those things. And it's done properly right. And so I like to think that technology part that you have integrated into the user experience is just kind of like the magic of it all. It's the magic that you walk out of that. You walk in and then you walk out and you're just like, wow, that was enjoyable, that was fun. And yeah, that's how I think
It's,
about it.
I mean, that's awesome, dude. And I'd love to see your work. I mean, in the end of the day, any of this, the design is in the details,
Yes.
and people may not notice the details, but they can feel the details, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you, I mean, that's like, there's that book, Atomic Habits. And, they tells the story of the French cycling team and how they were like the worst cycling team. And I'll butcher the story, but in the end of the day, they brought on this new coach and he was like, we're never going to beat on fitness. We're never going to beat on this. But
Mm-hmm.
if we start breaking down racing into every little detail and we try to be slightly better in every one of those details,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to transform this team. And they ended up becoming one of the best cycling teams ever. And it was all with like, all right, we need to change the lube that we're using on our wheels. We need to change the clothing that we're wearing. We need to adjust this. We need to change our diet a little bit better here.
Yeah.
And so at Birdcall, it's like every day, how do we come in? Like, what are those details that no one's going to notice, but when they all come together, they can feel. And it allows for your brand to be so differentiated.
Mm-hmm.
And those details make a difference, and they're felt, even if no one can
Absolutely.
point them out, right?
Yep, exactly. Well, Peter, I really do appreciate our conversation today. There's a lot more we could jump into, but we're gonna ask you to come. I'm gonna ask you to come back because I'm sure you're gonna come up with another concept that it's gonna be brilliant. It's gonna work out here, also in Phoenix, and we're gonna see more of you down the road. I have no doubt. I have all confidence in you that I'll see you again in some shape or form. But I leave this end part to kind of talk about goals and just kind of overall what you would like to have our users, our listeners, help you achieve in the next coming years. But before we get into it, I'd like to just say that Seventh Street and Glendale location of Birdcall is now open, I believe.
It's open.
Yeah, and then you guys are opening up a third location over in the Santan Valley in early November. Fingers crossed for that. But if there's anything else that you would like to share with us, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and I think it's just, I mean, dude, we're so thankful to be opening up in Arizona. I mean, we've got a deep love of the Phoenix market, and it's been a dream for so long. I mean, golly, we started dreaming about opening up in Arizona years and years ago, and we didn't decide to bring Birdcall to Arizona because we wanted to build a satellite. I mean, we really came to Arizona because we wanted to create a home. And we plan to be here forever, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make mistakes, and that doesn't mean we have a lot to learn. And early in our restaurant days, we learned that if you're not building a restaurant for the community it has a privilege to operate in, why are you building it?
Yeah.
And so we have a lot to learn in Arizona, but we want to learn, and we're just thankful to be here. And I'm looking forward to spending more time down there. But come check us out and give us feedback, and
Awesome.
we'll learn. But I hope you like the sandwich.
Yeah, I will definitely. We were talking about this off air. It's right next to my son's swim class location, so I'm gonna definitely make myself stop off the next time we're over there, which is next week. So I will definitely be staying in contact, giving you some feedback on my experience, and then we also leave this end part for you to kind of promote yourselves, where they can find you online, where social media handles you want to give out. That's totally up to you. Location numbers, whatever it may be. Go ahead, Peter. Thank you for
So in Arizona, our website is www.eatbirdcall.com. Eatbirdcall.com. You can find us on Instagram, but our location's in Arizona. I mean, we're about to open in Santan Village the beginning of November. Come out there. The first day of the opening, I think we give away the first 25 cars that line up. We give Birdcall for a year. Then we have our location that just opened up at 7th and Glendale, and then of course Scottsdale and Shea. We just passed a year, so it's been there for a year. So.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you again, Peter. We do have a little outro for ourselves here. You can hear every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. We make it easy for you to find us on social media, everything under Finding Arizona Podcast. Last but not least, kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends. We will see you next time.